Hello there, and welcome to the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast. I'm so glad you're here today. My name is Denise Alvarez, and just in case we are new friends, before we jump into our one big idea today that I have for you, I'd love to tell you just a bit about myself and my business, like I said, in case we've not yet met. So my business is called Storm Lily Marketing, and through that, I get to help horse business owners like you turn your website visitors into your customers. I get to do that through coaching, website design and content, email marketing strategy, as well as my monthly membership called Social Stride. I do each of these things because I love to help you all be out doing more of what you really enjoy doing. So I enjoy marketing, but I know that not everybody does. And so I created this podcast to help you out, to provide some step-by-step strategies, some basic how-tos, so that you can see what's possible when you market your horse business, and so I can guide you through that process. So if you go back and listen to previous episodes, you will see that I tend to provide you lists and ideas and specific tips and practical strategies, and that is what you can typically expect. But this week I have something just a little bit different. So I know that you might be in a variety of places right now. Maybe you're tying up loose ends for the year in your business, or maybe you are hanging out with your kids that happen to be out of school this week, or whatever it is that you tend to do between this kind of odd time between Christmas and New Year's. And so what I want to do today is focus on just one thing to make it super simple and easy for you to digest and easy for you to apply. So it may be a bit of a shorter episode, but I promise you it is no less practical and no less powerful for what's possible in your horse business. So this week, what we're talking about is actually not something that's super marketing specific, but as I said, it definitely applies to your horse business, and it's going to help you with the other areas in marketing as well. Now, in case you have not heard yet, on January 7th, depending on when you listen to this, as of right now, when it publishes, I'll be able to say next week, but I know not everybody listens on the same day. But either way, January 7th, I'm hosting a brand new, totally free workshop for horse business owners all about goal setting. So if you haven't yet signed up, I sure hope you will join me. Like I said, totally free. And as I said before too, you know that I love to give you practical helps for your horse business. So you can definitely expect to get that as I share with you my 5-step strategy for setting goals that stick. Those goals that are really going to help motivate you throughout the year. So be sure that you head over to stormlily.com/goalcrusher to get registered, because even if you can't be there live, if you register, I'm going to email out a link to the recording as well. Okay. Of course, I'd love to have you live, and I have a special gift if you do show up. But here's why I'm mentioning that right now, because in light of that workshop, I've been thinking about all of you, my horse business owner listeners, and I've been thinking about how I can best help you to crush your goals. That's my goal for that workshop, right? And so as a part of that, I've been diving into other ideas from other people and how they set their goals and meet their goals. Mainly, I've been listening and watching other non-horsey business people that I happen to admire that I believe are successful. Now, I do have a process that I've put together that I trust, but I'm also a big fan of being a learner at heart. And so what I've also been doing is reading a book called Finished by Jon Acuff. If you've not heard of it, I've really been enjoying it. It's not surprisingly, since it's called Finished, it's about how you can finish your goals. So I thought that sounded just perfect, right, for what I'm preparing to teach you all as well. Now, if you happen to be a perfectionist, maybe you've heard of this book because it turns out it was written specifically for perfectionists. People, honestly, who start lots of things but don't finish them because they have to be perfect, and that keeps them from finishing their goals. Now, to be honest, I didn't realize that was the entire premise up front. I just knew that I had heard really good things about it, so I thought I would read it. Actually, let's be honest, I didn't read this one. This is my very first time doing an Audible book, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm listening to it. But do not worry. This podcast is not about perfectionists. I'm not talking to only perfectionists here. Honestly, it's just the opposite, but we'll get there. So, finished the book. It had some really good out of the ordinary ideas for helping you to accomplish your goals. So at first, when I was thinking about this particular episode on the podcast, I thought I would hone in on one of those things for you all that maybe aren't reading the book, but that you could benefit from. Specifically, I was going to hone in on this idea from John. If you want to get it done, make it fun. That's the premise. And he talks about how most people don't actually tell you that. Typically they talk about the hard work that it requires. And he was saying, if you really want to get your goals done, you need to make it fun. And so I thought, well, that's a little bit different. I even started writing a list of ideas for how you all could be intentional about making your goals fun. But to be honest, the more that I tried to flesh out this idea, I couldn't do it. I was really struggling because I realized that it was not going to be true for everybody. How do I know that? Well, I am a perfectionist, or recovering perfectionist, as lots of people like to say, but let's just be real. It's a tendency I'm always going to have, but I am learning how to be healthy within it. And so I'm who John wrote that book for, right? I'm a perfectionist, but this idea of in order to get it done, it has to be fun. To be honest, it's not super true for me. In a lot of ways, my mentality is just that once I say I'm going to do it, if I set my mind to it, I'm a little bit stubborn about it, right? If I have a particular goal in mind, then I kind of see tunnel vision and work my way towards it. Now, I am not putting on some facade to say that I am a super disciplined person when it comes to every area of my life, because I'm not. And if you wanted to talk to my husband, Daniel, he could tell you that. But I will say when I set my mind to something and I have a specific goal in mind, then I'm going to do it. In this podcast, to be honest, as an example, a lot of podcasts, honestly, the very large majority of podcasts, if you did a search online, they don't make it past the first 20 episodes. There are a lot of podcasts out there. There are not a lot of active podcasts out there. And here we are on episode number 60 of the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast. Why? Because I decided up front that this podcast was a large part of how I wanted to serve horse business owners like you. I knew that it would help to frame the rest of my content, my email marketing, my social media. Much of that stems from what starts here on the podcast. The blog post on my blog, those are my show notes, right? Now, is the podcast always fun? Not exactly. I mean, I do enjoy it, but there are a lot of very late nights. There are weekends sometimes because that's just life. It's not always super fun. However, I'm committed to it and I'm going to get it done. Why do I mention that? Because let's go back. Remember, I was going to talk to you about how we have to make our goals fun in order to meet them, but I don't think that's true for everybody. Now, do I make sure I celebrate my goals? Yes. Do not worry. I'm not like a super non-fun person. I think celebrating is very important, but I don't think that having fun is the only one surprising way that you or someone else listening to this podcast are going to crush your goals. Maybe some, but not everybody. So instead, as I was preparing for this, what I came to realize is that the one surprising way that you are going to crush your goals is actually self-awareness. Now, I know, like I said, it's not your typical marketing podcast, but stick with me, okay? I promise this applies to your horse business and will apply to your marketing. When I talk about self-awareness, I'm talking about knowing yourself, knowing your tendencies, your personalities, and working intentionally with what you know about yourself to set yourself up for success so that you will crush your goals. What do I mean by that? Well, you need to know what motivates you. You also need to know what maybe doesn't motivate you. You need to know what keeps you from accomplishing what you set out to do. For example, do you say the same thing every year, but you never actually make it happen? Do you actually make a goal, or do you just kind of tend to say it but not commit, right? Maybe take a bit of time to figure out why that happens. What are the roadblocks? Are there some mental roadblocks that are keeping you from making progress in your business and hit your goals every year? Now, of course, if you go online and you search for self-awareness, you're going to find a ton of information out there. And I am not trying to be any sort of guru at all. You could dive into personality types. You can find your Enneagram number. You can find your strengths with Strength Finders. There are all kinds of things you can do to learn about yourself. And I do believe they all have their place and they can be very helpful. So definitely not bashing that. But what I'm saying right now is my homework for you today is not to go take one of these tests. Instead, this strategy of knowing yourself and having a little bit more self-awareness is really taking time to just embrace who I believe God has uniquely made each of us to be. Because what's really neat is that you can look at successful people in any industry, even in any part of the horse industry, or go outside of that. And while you might find some common threads, and it's good to learn from those, there's not just one Enneagram number that shows up. There's not just one type of goal setter. There's not just one strength that shows up in business owners that are successful. And I love that because no matter where you are on the spectrum, I believe that you can meet and even crush your goals in the coming year, especially those that you have for your business. And it starts with knowing yourself well. Because as you know your strengths, as you know your weaknesses, as you know your tendencies, these are the things that are going to help you crush your goals in 2022 and the years after that as well. Now, of course, there is more to self-awareness overall, and there's more to goal setting overall, right, than just knowing yourself. And that's exactly why I'm hosting this free goal setting workshop. To be honest, self-awareness is not even a part of my material. And so that's why I wanted to dive into that here on the podcast, because I think it's super important. And I think that as you join me there and you have some ideas, then you're going to be able to hear what I have to share with you through the filter of how it applies to you and what that looks like in your business, right? So I do want you to be there with me. And honestly, I have a pretty strong feeling that if you don't embrace the type of goal setter that you are and learn how to make that work for you and your business and what you want to accomplish in the coming year, then even my wonderful and helpful and doable 5-step process, because you know I love those practical strategies, I have a process for you, but it may not help you as much if you don't come in with a little bit of self-awareness, okay? So before you come into that workshop on January 7th, I hope you'll take just a little bit of time to think about how you were uniquely made and embrace it. And then make sure that you do head over to stormlily.com/goalcrusher and get signed up for my free workshop, Goal Setting for Equestrian Entrepreneurs. One last note. I would love it if you would reply to your confirmation email. When you sign up, I'll send you an email with the link so you know exactly where to go. When you get that email, would you reply or maybe jump on Instagram or Facebook and send me a message? I would love to hear about your own goal setting makeup. What's your personality when it comes to crushing goals? Do you have to make it fun? Maybe you have to always write it down, or you write it down every day. Or maybe you like rewards and you like recognition. What motivates you? I would love to know. So if you would hit reply on that confirmation email or send me a message. As you all know, I love to hear from you. I love to connect with you. So I will be looking forward to those messages from you all. Okay, I promised you this was not going to be a list episode. This is one thing, all right? So head over to stormlily.com/goalcrusher, get signed up for the workshop. And then, of course, as always, you can find the show notes for today's episode, which is episode number 60, at stormlily.com/60. Now, I also would love it if you would invite a friend. 2 ways, right? If you're enjoying this podcast, would you share it with a friend? Do you maybe have a horse business owner that you think would enjoy this or could learn some things from it? Then I would be so grateful if you would share that with them, and so I could meet them in that way and help them out. And then invite them to join you for this goal setting workshop. It is free and open to any horse business owner. And to be honest, we tend to meet our goals more when we have somebody to talk about with them, right? So invite your friends and get signed up. And I will see you all soon on the workshop. And I'll see you next week here on the podcast. Have an awesome day.